Today, I want to share with you how I brainwashed myself to be rich and went from a broke personal trainer to the CEO of a multi-hundred-million-dollar company in the span of less than a decade. If you don't know who I am, my name is Layla Hormozi. I'm the CEO and founder of Acquisition.com, which is a portfolio of businesses valued at about $500 million. I built and sold 3 of my own businesses by the age of 28, leading to a net worth of $100 million by the age of 28. And I did that by using these same principles that I'm going to share with you in this video. Listen, growing up, I did not come from a rich family and I did not come from a rich area. In fact, most of my memories of my childhood are remembering how we didn't have money, how we had to save money, and all of the times where my parents were worried about paying the bills. The neighborhood that I lived in, the same problems went on there. Like either you're bartending, you're waiting at one of the local restaurants, or you're working at a car dealership. And so for most of my life, when I thought about like what is the most unfathomable amount of money that I could make, I thought of $100,000. And then when I got to the age of about, I wanna say between 17 and 18, and I actually ended up reading the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And as I read the book, I realized it wasn't even that I had a poor dad, it was that every single person I surrounded myself with, including everyone that lived in my town, all had the poor dad mentality. And I immediately was like, I need to get out of here because my beliefs about money are what are preventing me from making it. As soon as I graduated college, in fact, I think it was 3 days before my graduation ceremony, I packed up my car and I moved to California because I was like, if I'm surrounding myself with these people who don't have the right beliefs about money, it's very unlikely I'm going to make more. Which leads me to my first principle on making money and brainwashing yourself into being rich, which is ignore advice from broke people. If someone has less money than you, why are you taking their advice? Even if it's your parents, like if they're not making the kind of money you want to make, why are you listening to them? Would you listen to a personal trainer who is 100 pounds overweight? Why do I think moving was the best decision I could have made for myself? I got around people who were richer, who were in better shape, who had better relationships, who were more ambitious. So what did I get by proxy? I started to become all of those things. Can you succeed despite your surroundings? Yes. Does it make it harder? Yes. And so we want to make it as easy as possible to get rich. And the reality is, if you hang around broke people, you're more likely to stay broke. The second piece of that I would ask myself is, what benefit does anybody around you get if you make more money than them? The reality is that it benefits them not at all. In fact, anything, it's probably worse for them. Because then what? How do they keep up with you, right? It makes them feel insecure. It's like, it will change the relationship in a way that they don't want. It will make them feel insecure about their own selves. And it's more likely that given enough time, the relationship comes to an end because there's not enough in common. And so you also have to ask yourself, even if it's not hurting you to be hanging out with these people, are they subconsciously preventing you from growing because they know it's not going to benefit them in any way? So it actually would benefit them if you remained poor. You know, there's 2 times in my life that I think I realized I cannot take advice from people who have less money than me. The first time was I had a mentor, and this person was amazing. And listen, I think mentors in general are amazing and you usually have them for phases of time, but it's very unlikely you're gonna have the same mentor forever. And this mentor I had, I remember taking advice from her for a long period of time. And then one day, I remember looking back at the last 6 months, and it was when I was at a point in my business where things started to stall. I realized that the advice that I was taking was not good. It was like an oh shit moment. I was like, you know what? When I started working with her, she had more money than me. And she had more success than me, and she had had a bigger business than me. But within a span of 24 months, I actually surpassed any revenue and any business size that she ever had. And then I realized, I was like, you know, I don't think this is the best advice for me anymore. I think I need to go find somebody who makes more money and has made more money than me. It makes sense why these problems are still occurring because she's actually never had to deal with them. So she's just guessing. The second time I realized that hanging around people who make less money, probably not the best idea, was when I was talking to a friend of mine, and it took such a little period of time to make such a big amount of money that, like, in my mind, a lot of my friends who had made more money than me prior, I still was asking for advice. And I remember that we were having a conversation, I was telling her what my goals were, and I just remember like her question, which was like, well, don't you already have enough? It was in that moment that I was like, dude, it's not about this. Like, it's not, money is the manifestation of the value that I'm creating and of the work I'm putting in. And so to me, is there ever enough? Like, probably not. And so it was really disheartening to hear. And that was in the moment when I realized, I was like, I can't be hanging around. I have to be careful who I tell my dreams to. And at the end of the day, it's not necessarily about you having more money than the person. It's about you having bigger dreams than somebody. Following financial advice from somebody who has less money than you ultimately is like following a broken compass. It is going to take you in the wrong direction or no direction at all. In fact, super interesting. So the Federal Reserve has done a survey, and that survey indicated that individuals with higher income peers tend to eventually have higher income themselves. And so it may sound harsh what I'm saying, but just the truth is that it's just like anything in life. If you want to be more in shape, if you want to have more money, if you want to have a better marriage, get around people who have what you want. The second principle to help you brainwash yourself into getting rich is to understand that money loves speed and wealth loves time. Power is the time between a thought to an action. So the faster that you can act on something, the more powerful you are. You know what money loves? Money loves speed. Money loves power. So in order to accumulate money, you want to move quickly on ideas. So if you look at somebody first starting a business, for example, and then within, a month, maybe it's not working too well, and then they just try to see it out for like 2 years, just trying to make sure this thing works. But like the best people, they're gonna try something, iterate, try something, iterate, try something, iterate until it clicks. And the reason that this is important, that money loves speed, is because lots of these things that we're doing to make money are reversible decisions. Now, why does wealth love time? Because oftentimes, when we're making decisions that accumulate wealth, they are irreversible decisions. And that is why you actually want to slow down on your decisions around making wealth, whereas with decisions around making money, we want to speed up. So an example of this is I had this friend, he sold his business and got about $10 million. What I don't think he understood is that the same skills that you use to build a business are actually not the same as what you use to build wealth and invest. In fact, the skills that you use to build a business are often the exact opposite of what you use to invest, like completely different mindset. I don't think he knew this, and so he immediately was like, I need to invest all my money. And rather than taking the time to really learn investing and introspectively ask himself, like, do I have the skills to invest right now? Do I have the skills to 2 or 3x or 4x or 5x my money with investing? He just put all his money into a bunch of different investments. Well, 4 years later, he has $1 million left out of that 10 million. So he lost $9 million all on bad investments. Now, why was this? It's because he was applying the same principles to making money to accumulating wealth. And the reality is that to make money, you need speed and you need power. To accumulate wealth, you need patience and time. The third principle is that money goes where attention flows. A lot of people have it backwards. They're like, I need to save money before I can focus on making money. Okay, well, if you put all of your attention into saving money, you're gonna get more saving from the money that you currently have, but you're not gonna get more of the total pie. You take all that energy and focus you have on saving money, what if you took that and put it on making more money? Which one would yield you a higher return and make you more? In the beginning, when I first started understanding money, the first thing I did was I tried to count every penny. You know what that was doing? That was stealing attention and time from all the energy I could have put into actually just making more fucking money. And so what did I do? When I first got my first job in sales, I never paid people to do anything for me. I would always do everything myself. And so cleaning my house, that took 4 hours a week. Cooking my food, that took another 3. And I remember I had a manager and he said, Layla, you spend about 12 hours a week just doing things to save money. What if you just took that 12 hours and made 3 more sales? And then you just paid people to do that. And I was like, yeah, it's not such a bad idea. And ironically, what happened? When I put all of my attention into making more money, I was able to buy back my time with the energy that I put into making the money rather than pinching every penny. There's no shortage of money. There's only a shortage of attention that you put on making it. And if all of your attention goes into saving money, you're literally training yourself to think small. And so the biggest secret to all these people who learn how to make money is they put their attention on making money, not counting pennies. An example of this is I even had a portfolio CEO. Over 2 quarters, revenue was not going up. And then the first thing I thought was, where's his attention going? And so when I audited his time, I said, send me your calendar. I want to see a screenshot over the last 6 months. I looked, and 80% of his time was spent on revenue supporting activities rather than revenue generating activities. But the irony of that was not an issue with the business. It was just a perfectionist mentality he had of I want to get it all to 0 so we lose nothing. And I was like, dude, you can lose nothing of a very small pie, or you can lose a little bit more of a freaking 10x pie. And so as soon as I said, your job is to generate revenue, there are other people who can do these things. The company actually started to grow in the next quarter. It actually grew 30% from that quarter to the next, just by switching where he put his time and attention. The concept of making money sounds very complicated to people, but the reality is most of us, right, our attention is being taken by all these other things that don't make us any freaking money. And then we're like, I don't know why I can't make any money. It's like, well, I can. Go look at where you spend your time. In fact, there's a study done that shows that entrepreneurs that focus on revenue generation rather than cost cutting have revenue of 15 to 25% higher than those who focus on cost cutting. So at the end of the day, can you save money? Yes. But if you put your time into generating money, you're going to generate higher returns for yourself and your time. Trying to save yourself into becoming rich is literally like trying to run a marathon backwards. You might finish, but you won't win. The next principle is to understand that frugality drives innovation. When I first started in business and I first started making a lot of money, what you realize is that money's almost like an easy button. And even for people who haven't amassed a lot of wealth yet, maybe you're at a different point in your life, we still believe that because something is more expensive, it's usually a better solution. And oftentimes, when we're being sold something or told what a solution is, we think that the most expensive option is always the best. But here's the thing, just like a problem or a solution expands to the amount of time you give yourself to solve it, a problem also expands to the amount of money you give yourself to solve it. So an example of this is back when I was running Gym Launch and we were looking at selling the company, I had to think through, okay, I wanna make sure we're 110% compliant, not just with like federal, but like with the FTC, with the SEC, like all of that stuff, right? I wanna make sure if we have a buyer looking at this, there's absolutely no cracks anywhere. And so I told my team, I was like, work with this legal team that I found through my friend, and I wanna make sure that we get everything buttoned up. And about 6 weeks to 8 weeks later, I got hit with a bill. It was like $870,000 in legal fees. And I went to my team and I was like, I don't even know where to begin. Why did we spend $870,000 on legal? And they were like, well, Layla, you said to work with these lawyers and we're trying to make sure we're compliant. So what we did was we gave them access to all of our portals, all of our content, all of our free groups, and we asked them to go through it all and then mark up everything that's not compliant. Then I said, cool, let me see it. And I mean, it was probably over 1,000 things that they commented on. You know, so much to the degree that it was absolutely useless because how could we take any action on it? In fact, we had paid top dollar for quite literally the worst solution that could exist.